it's almost 2025, or maybe when you're watching this, it is 2025, and if so, God, it's 2025. But that means that we have to talk about what Valorant and what Riot can do to make Valorant a better game for 2025. I've got 4 things on my list. Now, interestingly, I did this last year as well. So first, I thought it'd be fun to look back at what I said at the end of 2023 for what needed to happen in 2024. Did we get any of that stuff? Well, let's start off with one thing that I think did happen. At some point will be coming to consoles and mobile, and obviously if that is in 2024, that will be a very big deal, of course. So yeah, Valorant did come out on console, so that's a win. And in terms of the mobile game, I think they're about to do an open beta. If I'm wrong about that, let me know, but I think that that's what's about to happen. So even though we didn't get fully the way there, we got kind of most of the way there, right? We're on course to do that, which is good. And there was another thing that I think maybe didn't fully improve to the extent that some of us would like, but I think that this did improve from 2023 to 2024. Here is just a little call out to all the pro teams. Stop being so bloody boring. Start doing something in your own way for once. I'm sick of watching all these mirror comps on all of these different maps because you've just copied what the best team has done, and you therefore think, well, this must just be the best thing because the best team has done it. So yeah, obviously not all of the maps were great in this aspect, looking at you, Ascent, but I think overall 2024 was better than 2023. We got a lot less mirror matchups. There was maybe some general similar comps, right? But if you look at like the metas on Sunset or Icebox, you know, you would get different initiator pairs. There would be at least some difference there, whereas I think, you know, beforehand, maybe they would have just been the same across the board. I also think going into 2025, you know, with the more regular map rotation, that should help as well with this problem, right? That when we're watching pro games, you know, that there shouldn't be too much staleness, because if you're constantly kind of rotating maps, then, you know, we can hopefully enjoy the new maps that are coming in at each time. But of course, there were some things which have not happened that were on my list last year, and therefore have made my list again this year. And the first one, you probably all know what it is, but I do just want to go back to the end of 2023 to understand what the discussion was around this thing at that time. Else that might be coming in 2024 that's been rumored to be coming for a while, and that is the replay system, which Valorant a while ago tweeted this. Next year, still in development for the main client. Their replay is talking about like the Chinese client, or more like Overwolf. We should see replays early next year or later on. Or the or later on doesn't help me, but you know, he said early next year or later on, which would imply 2024. So yeah, we really thought that, oh, this has to come out in 2024 because of this tweet by Valorleaks, and it didn't. Right, what we did get though in 2024 was kind of an actual proof, right? We got video proof that there is a replay system there and that they are working on it, right? We do have that proof that they gave us, so that is at least one thing. But of course, you know, will 2025 be the year? I mean, I'm hopeful. The dream for me is that this is the 5-year anniversary, kind of midway, you know, through the year is the anniversary, 5 years of Valorant, right? That would be a prime time, you would think, if they're going to release a replay system, this thing that people have really wanted for a super long time. You would hope that that might be the time. But there was another thing in my old video as well that I think also didn't really happen, and so it's making my list again. When we look back at 2023, one of the main disappointments for me was the new agents that came out in 2023. They were Gecko, ISO, and Deadlock, and they didn't really have a big impact on the game. So yeah, the 3 agents that we got there were ISO, Deadlock, and Gecko, which at the time didn't really have that big of an impact on the meta. Now Gecko of course got buffed and, you know, then started to see quite a bit of play. But this year we actually only got 2 agents. We only got Vice and Clove. Now, Clove, of course, had no real impact on a pro scene meta. Clove did have a pretty big impact in ranked, so that is something, and probably is an improvement over, you know, the likes of ISO and Deadlock, who, if you remember when they came out, were completely awful, right? And Vice, obviously, again, probably came out too late in the year to make an impact on the pro scene. You know, maybe there will be more of an impact, you know, coming to the start of this year, but, you know, not the biggest sizable impact there from Vice either. So again, we kind of repeated this of like, you know, it was probably a little bit better than it was in 2023, right? The agents that came out, but I still think there can be more, right? Obviously, we have a new agent coming out very soon, and we should, I would suspect, get maybe 2 more, right? Then, okay, you know, hopefully at least one of them, if not multiple, can make, you know, a bit more of a sizable impact, because I think we're just a bit due for, you know, kind of a new agent to really come in and kind of spice up the game. But now let's move on to two things which were not in my list for 2024 and things that I want to see for 2025. And the first thing that I'm going to focus on is actually the broadcast of VCT. Because I think that the broadcast of VCT, whilst being very professional, and I think that all of the regions, Pacific, EMEA, and Americas, you know, do a pretty good job on the whole, but I think it can be better, right? There are ways of making this better, and I think in particular, you know, the real thing that people care about when it comes to these things is players and personalities, right? That's what people generally, I think, tend towards the most, particularly more casual fans. You know, that's what they're going to latch onto. And I just feel like we don't get enough, right? We don't get enough good content from them, essentially, right? In terms of being embedded into the broadcast, in terms of being interested in what they're about to say, right? You think of, like, you know, they do interviews sometimes, like, you know, during the halftime break of a game. And it's like, they're not saying anything interesting, right? They don't want to, like, it's very clear that they don't want to be there. They're just doing it because they have to. They're not saying anything interesting. It just feels like a bit of a waste of everyone's time, right? So I was just thinking, like, what could they do? And there was one piece of content that I really did like, which was done by VCT Pacific early in the season, which was when they got all the coaches around, like, a dining table and just had some food and talked about, you know, the game, essentially, right? And that was a really good piece of content by VCT Pacific, right? And I think that that kind of content, especially now that teams, you know, allegedly don't have, like, the incentives to, you know, make content for the broadcast anymore, seems like Riot has somewhat given up on that idea. You know, now that teams aren't incentivized to do that anymore, we need it to come basically from the broadcast, right? It has to come from the broadcast to get those pieces of content out that are interesting to watch. And so I would personally like to see more of that kind of, like that coaches discussion at the kind of table there where, you know, it's a more relaxed setting. Perhaps they feel more comfortable with just being themselves, right? Talking about the game that, of course, they spend so much time, you know, watching and potentially playing if you're players, right? So I would like to see more of that because I think the broadcast can be better. We can get more. We can, you know, create better storylines if we know the players and the personalities better than, you know, we do right now and the access that we get to them right now. So that, I think, is one thing that I would like to see for 2025. And then the last thing that I want to see added, which I'm sure a lot of you will probably agree with this, by the way, is more game modes, right? To be fair to Riot, the last couple game modes that they have added in Swift Play and Team Deathmatch have both been great successes, right? I don't think anyone would disagree with that. Adding those two game modes into Valorant definitely made the game better. However, I do still think there is massive, massive space in Valorant for a very casual game mode, right? For a sandbox-esque game mode. And because of the way that, you know, Valorant works with the anti-cheat system and all of that, obviously, as far as we can tell, Riot aren't going to open it up to the community to design those game modes, right? So it has to come from Riot. We have to rely on them to be able to do that. But I do think there is so much space that you could, you know, create some really, really fun casual game modes here. You know, that aren't really, who cares who wins, right? It's got nothing to do with that. It's just about having fun in the game, right? That would be a lot of fun. And I think a lot of people would enjoy that, right? A kind of Fall Guys in Valorant. So that is my list of 4 things that Valorant needs to add for 2025. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Realistically, what would you like Riot to add in the game for the new year? And have a good new year, everyone.